to Ted Lasso Post-Match, the Ted Lasso review podcast, where I'm Vinny and I'm joined by my good friend Aidan.
Good day.
All the way in Australia.
Good day, mate.
And we are going to sit down and discuss the latest episode of Ted Lasso.
That's right, Vinny. And at the very end, we crown an MVP, most valuable player of the episode, which I think this episode, kind of a hard one to do it, I feel.
I forgot that we did that, I'm not going to lie. So,
well, as we go through the episode, you could figure out who you want to make your MVP. It's a weird one because it's an episode where like most people kind of like stuff up.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one to find an MVP, but I think there is a couple of MVPs in there, actually.
I agree, yeah.
We got Big Week this week, which is episode 4.
Yep.
I assume I've just got a hunch now that they are just going for this like song of the week kind of vibe. I know we say this every week, but Big Week, it just sounds blatantly like a song vibe. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
It gives me like New York jazz song vibes. I don't know why. That's what I'm running with. Okay, all right. This episode, it begins with Roy and Jamie. Roy is bloody knocking at Jamie's house, and we get to see Jamie's ass, which was just a pleasant way to start the show, I suppose. And Roy's trying to get him up for a bit of early training. Jamie's all like, "Nah, fam, 4 a.m. This ain't it." Which...
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I thought you were joking."
Yeah. And you, Vinny, as a gym girl, do you do the 4 a.m. get-ups to get to the gym?
I do not. I get up at 6 to go to the gym, which is
good.
early enough.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get up earlier. Nah.
Yeah,
not for
a
me.
Fan. Not about that life. Not about it. Well, he gets up and get going anyways. And meanwhile, Nate is planning West Ham's attack on Richmond. And he does this he knocks over Ted, and then he kind of instantly feels a little bit guilty about it, is sort of how I read it. And I think that kind of sets up where this episode's going. It's a very Nate-centered episode, which I think is welcome after 2 weeks of no Ned. No Ned? Nate. Combining Ted and Nate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's not completely centered around Nate, but he does definitely have a focus in this episode. And as much as I dislike the character, we've not seen him for like 2 weeks. And, it is vital that because he's going to be such a big part of this season.
Yeah.
And I do think it was an interesting insight into Nate in this episode after we've not really seen that much of him this season on the grand scheme of things. So
you said, you don't like Nate as a character. Do you, even after this episode, you still not like him?
No.
Oh my God, Vinny, I don't want to call him the GOAT because he's not the GOAT, but he's a great character. I love him.
No, I just don't like even on my rewatch, I'm sort of in the beginning of series 2 at the moment of my rewatch. And, he's just being an asshole. I know that's the point, but it's like he's come from being the kit man to being a coach. Yet all he does in series 2 is belittle the kit man. And I'm like, no, you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't think you would do that because you know what it feels like. Yeah. But he's just...
But I think that's the point, right?
He has to be an asshole.
I
don't like it.
I know. But it's like a power thing, right? Where it's like he's been talked down to his whole life, but now he finally has power. And so it's that abuse of power.
But with power, you should be good.
It does. Yeah, that's right.
Like Spider-Man.
Great
Uncle Ben said it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's his exact line. It was like, with great power, you should be good. That's his dying line.
Piss off,
there's so much stuff that Nate does in this episode that does just like, it's kind of triggering. Like, yes, I think there's some sympathetic moments in it, but there is there's one scene where he revisits the restaurant that we saw in season 2, and in that scene he's like being all smiley and trying to be a little bit all wanky to
he's trying to be all flash.
And then someone actually comes and recognizes him and is actually being nice to him and like overly excited about him. He just does this like just smile, and it just gave me the ick big time. It's so frustrating.
And what I didn't like about that is that, yeah, like he's like, oh no, like we're not charging him. This guy is like a legend. And what I liked and disliked is that the waitress doesn't care. She doesn't care. But that grinds on Nate. Nate thinks that it should impress her. And I like the fact that she doesn't care because, you know, it's not important. Like football isn't the be all end all of everyone. No. Like if the lead captain, coach, whatever of West Ham came into my work, I would have no fucking clue who he was.
It's Nate the Great. What does she call him when he comes in? Like, was it Ned? Oh, she gets his name wrong, and it's so funny, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're jumping ahead. Sassy and Ted had a bang bang, which I assume you loved as a Sassy Ted lover.
Well, I liked that they pushed that forward a bit more. The fact that Ted after waking up, he asked her out on a date and she instantly said no. Part of me, I don't know if that's the end of the Ted and Sassy romance.
I don't think so.
Or I think that's now something that Ted's really gonna like, because we see at the end of the episode, Ted sort of is trying to fix himself now. And, you know, really recover, put his past behind him, not dwell on, you know, Michelle and everything like that. And, you know, I do think that we'll see Sassy again in this season.
Definitely, I agree.
Whether she ends up with Ted, I'm not sure. But
my curious thing here is that he, like, her reasoning is that he's a mess, right? And she's like, I'm still a mess, but I'm 3 years on of a mess. So there's that thing where it's like she's always going to be a bit further on than he is. But, and this might grind your gears a little bit, you know who is the same amount of a mess as Ted is? Rebecca.
Yes.
So that's I don't mind if they end up together. We've spoken about this quite a few times, but it's like that. There's a couple of, that's the easy way out, right? And there's a couple of arrows pointing in that direction at the moment, I think. So we'll see. They talk about that Uber ratings, which I think is really funny because then at the end of that scene, we see her getting into her Uber and she's only got like a 3.9 star rating or something. And as she gets in, she's like, hello, lovely seats, very comfy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really that was good. And then Jamie's on Yak whilst he's training out the front, which is great to see. All right, so we go on to our theme song. After the theme song, we find out that Jack, who has funded Keely's whole business endeavor, is in town, and so she, or at the time they don't know who Jack is, needs tickets to the game, and we get an idea that I always get her job title wrong. The CFO, Chief Financial Officer? Is that right?
Chief Financial Officer, yeah.
Yeah, the lady that's a bit snarky with Keely. She's
Katie
sort
Wicks.
Of like Katie Wicks, that's right. And she's like fangirling over Rebecca the whole time. So yeah,
it's because Rebecca's this like together businesswoman, and
Keely isn't. She seems. Okay, yeah, I got what you mean. And then for me, the highlight of every episode is whenever we get a Diamond Dogs thing. So very quickly we had a Diamond Dogs called, and then a woof, 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 woof. That's
and then Roy walked off.
He did. Great moment of Roy before that was him and Coach Beard. I don't know how many times they took to get this right because it's so extravagant and goes on and on and on.
To use,
the tactic board, and they're going through it, and then all that Higgins has to say is like, "What is Zava gonna do this?" And then they're like, "Fuck this," and smack the board and shit.
That was a great bit.
It's so funny. Okay. So Shandy was a new character introduced this season, who's Keely's friend, who's now working for Keely. She gets a bit more in here where she starts to sort of take charge and get her own little project. She gets
some responsibility, yeah.
She does. How do you feel about Shandy at the moment?
She's annoying.
Yeah, I'm not sold on her. Yeah, just like
I think she's supposed to be annoying.
Yeah, but I'm still like looking at it and I'm like, I don't know what she's doing to the plot at the moment. I'm sure she'll serve some purpose. Everything in Ted Lasso is so intricately planned out, but
Yeah, I think that her purpose is, Keely's running this company. Katie Wicks's character, I can't remember her name, the chief financial officer. She's, she doesn't believe that Keely can run a company, clearly.
Yep.
And, Keely's then invented a job and given this random girl from her past a job. And I think, she's going to mess up. She's interfered with the whole banter thing at the moment in this episode. But I think her main, role is to sort of push Keely's character into that sort of Rebecca character, because Keely really looks up to Rebecca, but Keely almost doesn't really have a backbone. She's too nice.
Yeah.
And I think this that Shandy's whole character is to push Keely to the point where Keely can actually be like, no, you're fired, you're not working for me, everything like that. That's what
she
I
might
think.
have to stand up to her.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Shandy has got a banter commercial that's shooting with the boys, which I thought was kind of funny because the commercial, they pixelate their faces in it, but you can still clearly tell who each of the boys are.
Yeah.
Danny with the long hair and things is really good. And then the goalie, who we are now calling Van Damme.
Yeah. I like that.
He says I want to find a girl who can take short walks on the beach with me so that we can spend more time. And trails off, and it's so it's good. It's good. Anyways, we then move on to pretty much the West Ham match, really.
A lot of it was centered at the West Ham ground.
It's a big day, a big match, and a big week. So at that, just before the game, we meet Jack, who we find out is a girl, but the first introduction of Jack is through a cubicle sequence where I'm sure as a girl these things ring very true, and Keely's there and she's on a period, she's not prepared for it. And Jack's the one that helps her out.
And I thought when watching that scene, the fact that it focuses on Jack's shoes, I was like, this character's going to come back at some point. I didn't expect it to be literally in the next scene and it be Jack, but I thought when it was taking place, okay, this is going to have some significance further down the line. But I do think that when Keely realizes that that's Jack and everything like that, I think Jack quite likes Keely, quite likes how natural she is and how, open she is.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily like Katie Wicks's character of pandering to her.
There's definitely a contrast there, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it's good. And Jack seems cool. She didn't obviously do that much this episode. So I'm curious if she's going to have a bit of an arc or some involvement in Keely's arc going forward. She'll definitely be back.
I feel like she will, yeah. They wouldn't have introduced her otherwise, I don't think.
Yeah, exactly. She's going to serve some purpose there.
Yeah.
So I'm keen to see that. She seems cool. During the Richmond West Ham match, Richmond trails at halftime. And after, because Nate kind of pulls some similar moves to what Ted taught him and Richmond, where they did some set piece that came out of nowhere. And so
No,
you go.
You can go.
No, you.
I was going to say, before getting to halftime, there was a couple really good bits on the Richmond ground, on the West Ham ground that I really enjoyed. So one of them was when Ted was in the elevator.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. How can I forget about that?
With the entire of the West Ham staff.
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh, speaking of trees, who are you rooting for?" And I just thought that was a great line. And then they all said West Ham, and he was like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
And then it leads into a perfect shot as well, where everyone leaves, and I was expecting Nate to be behind all the people, but then they're not. He's not. And then you're like, oh, okay, so it's just Ted. And then Ted steps aside and he's right behind Ted.
Yeah.
And it's so perfectly
in the
framed.
Corner.
Yeah, in the corner, staring away, which is so funny.
And
I was wondering.
I thought. No, you go.
I was going to say, did Nate Do you think Nate turned into that corner after realizing that Ted was in the elevator, or
I
do you
think so, yeah.
Or do you think he was like, I don't want to talk to these people, so
No,
put
I think
himself in the corner from the
it
start?
was to avoid Ted, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But I did think that was a great scene, especially in, Nate clearly wants to talk to Ted.
Mm-hmm.
And then just as he's about to, the elevator door opens and Rupert stood there in his black Darth Vader get up. And like that, I really thought that was very Star Warsy.
Yeah.
Because I think Ted sees good in Nate still, in the same way that Luke saw good in Vader still. Like everyone else was like, no, Vader's like evil, and Luke was like, no, they're still good in him. And I think that's what Ted's like with Nate.
Yeah.
They're like, because even obviously at halftime, Roy and Beard show the video of Nate ripping the sign and everyone gets angry. And like Ted didn't want to show the team that, because I think Ted does believe that Nate is still good, still has some good in him, but has almost been corrupted in the same way that Vader was by the Emperor. So I am seeing a lot of Star Warsy parallels.
There's a lot in there,
but especially in this episode, yeah.
It's interesting with Nate. We got some. Yeah, I just made a weird throat noise that definitely would have picked up on the microphone. That's so weird. Nate is obviously trying to apologize to Ted. He feels like he needs to get it off of his chest. And earlier on in the episode, we saw Rupert kind of shut that idea down. And it's interesting because in episode 1, Rupert's like, "Call me Rupert." I think he says that in episode 1.
Yeah.
And then after
at the beginning of this episode, he says,
"Call me
Mr. Mannion."
That's it. You're so good with names. I can't. I'm so glad you took that over. And it's like once Nate has shown that doubt, it's like Rupert is kind of putting out there that Nate needs to earn his respect again a little bit.
Yeah.
So he's like threatened to say, "I'm sorry." And then when the doors open and Rupert's there, Nate obviously doesn't say that. And then at the end, when Nate won the game and things, it's like he's gained Rupert's respect again, because Rupert then says, "Oh, did he say call me Rupert again at the end? Am I making that up?" Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
That's good writing.
It is. And I think it shows again what we spoke about previously, where like Nate has a constant need to approve authority. Like he wants to impress like these power figures in his life. So like that's why like he constantly tries to impress his father, and he tries to impress Ted when he was at Richmond, and now he's trying to impress Rupert. And it's just like, he's got this constant need to impress people, even at the restaurant they went to.
Definitely.
Like that's how he thinks that he has to get by. But I think eventually Nate will come to realize that Rupert doesn't respect him at all.
Yeah.
Ted respects him, but he's earned Ted's respect. And vice versa. But like Rupert doesn't respect Nate at all. And I think Nate will eventually realize that, because I think Rupert's going to do a lot of this. No, Mr. Mannion. No. Like, the way that Rupert is portrayed is like, he's very powerful, but he's very loving. Like not loving in a sense that like, no, he only loves himself, but like he comes across as a very lovable character.
Yeah, he's good at talking.
Yeah. Like back in series 1 at the charity do, when he turns up,
yes, yep.
He knows what he's doing. He knows how to work people. He knows how to portray himself. But I think / hope that by the end of the season, Nate's going to see through that.
100% he will. He's got to turn on Rupert at some point, because we start to see some really dodgy sides of Rupert here. We see him still cheating, even though he now has a kid.
Yeah.
And we'll come to that shortly, because that's a big W moment there. Yeah, so it was sort of at halftime, right? And Richmond is now trailing. Rebecca is continuing this sort of crazy push about winning. She's literally like desperately grabbing Ted, because there was a sweet moment earlier that was set up as well where she was like, please win this game. And we got to see them talk about the Sassy situation and the Ted not being all that. What does he say? He said another good Ted line, but
it was
I can't remember.
It was some sort of pun, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's like something, I'm a working prog mess. That's what he says, which was really good. And yeah, so Rebecca's sort of grabbing him. Roy and Coach Beard show them the footage, which makes the whole team really angry. Great line from earlier in the episode when they were watching the sign get ripped down is when Trent says, you can take the boy out of the journalism, but you can't take the journalism out of the boy. and Roy's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. Anyways, back into the game. Everyone is extremely feisty and angry, and it was a hilarious montage, right? All the pushing, people getting red cards left, right, and center. And
I mean, it was pretty mental.
It is, but
it was an interesting. I didn't expect that to be the way that the second half turned out.
Yeah, it's interesting because you might watch that and be like, oh, that's so unrealistic. But there was a United game, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think it was in like the Euro League or something. And they were basically down 1-0 with 10 minutes left. And then one of the players on the other team got red carded. And then like the coach arced up about it and was going off. And so the coach got red carded, which meant that he couldn't sit on the sides anymore. And then another player grabbed the ref and was like, you can't do that. And then he red carded that player. And so United got a comeback and won 3-1. Like, it's ridiculous.
Bloody hell.
In 10 minutes, they won the game. It's so crazy. So, yeah.
I would say that, like, I thought that showing them the footage, I was on sort of Roy and Beard's side. I thought showing them the footage
sounds good in concept.
That buzz. Yeah. But obviously, clearly, Ted knows the team better than, we can give him credit for, because all it did was like make him add fuel to the wrong fire almost.
Exactly.
Like, because they got sloppy and aggressive. Didn't appreciate the dig at Italy there, the Italian side. But I mean, it's true. But
yeah.
I don't know if you watched the Euros. Did you watch the Euros?
No, I've seen like clips of it online, but I've not sat down and watched a full game.
So the Euros, England were in the final of the Euros, just like the last Euros, because the Euros are like the World Cup.
Yeah,
like a massive, big deal. And the men's side, England were in the final. First time the English national team have reached a final since, I think, 1966, when they won the World Cup. So I think, I could be wrong there, but like the first time in a long time that they've reached a final, and they were against Italy,
right?
In the final of the Euros, and Italy played dirty, and Italy won the Euros, but they played like they pulled shirts of players and things that should have been fouls and they weren't, and so that's what that was a dig about. The fact that one of the guys in the pub's like, oh, we're playing like Italy. That's what that was about.
And you were like,
rubbed a lot of people up. Now
you'll take it.
Yeah. But
we got to jump.
I thought that.
No, you go.
Let me finish.
I'm sorry. I'm just cautious that you need to leave soon. So
I know. But I will say, like, considering Richmond had 3 players sent off, including their goalkeeper.
Yeah, that's rough.
The fact that they only lost 4-1 is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I think it should have been way worse than that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I
think they got off lightly.
maybe the team isn't all Zaba, right? Maybe they've all come a long way together.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see it in this episode, but
no, but they must have some decent defenders that are like
oh
at
yeah,
least
yeah, yeah,
pulling something together with limited resources, right?
yeah, definitely.
Especially if if they're not playing with their main goalie. Okay, so towards the end of the episode, let's race through these last couple of bits. We see Rebecca finally stand up to Rupert, and she says, "Oh, what did she say? It's like you need to be
because
better."
she sees him with his secretary,
Mhm.
which I thought was great. I love the fact that she saw that.
Yeah, she gets her
Because it
boss
just
bitch moment.
shows, yeah, and it shows that it is a good thing that she's not still with him.
Mm-hmm.
And she said something along the lines of like, I can't remember Rupert's new girlfriend, but she says that her and their kid deserve better.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she can't believe that like he's still screwing about.
Yeah, which is a great win for her, a great W
Yeah,
for her, which makes her one of my MVPs, one of 2 MVPs today.
yeah, ditto.
Mm-hmm.
And then like later on in the episode, we see obviously like West Ham have a big celebration do.
Yep.
And that's when obviously Nate's got a little bit of Rupert's respect, but that's just because they won. So that's when he, says, oh, no, it's Rupert.
Yep.
Introduces him to a pretty girl. But then even Nate sees that he goes off with his secretary
or
his assistant. And, I think I'd like to think that we're really going to see a downfall of Rupert.
Yeah, I think so. He's like the emperor. Everyone's going to turn against him in the end, right?
Yeah.
It's
and
strange
I think
because
that's even his girlfriend in this episode was making a couple digs at him.
Yeah.
And, he clearly doesn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, everyone's going to see through the money, see through the charm.
Yeah. It's strange because a lot of that like iconography that they're going with is giving him like a Darth Vader vibe, but he's clearly the emperor of the situation, right?
Yeah.
Where Nate's the Vader and he's going to turn
Yeah.
on Rupert and ultimately have a downfall.
Hopefully.
I think they will. Keeley tells off Shandy in front of Jack after changing the banter tagline without any approval from anyone else, which was a good boss bitch Keeley moment. But I feel like there's still stronger boss bitch Keeley moments to come out of this whole situation.
Yes.
So we'll hold off that for a little bit. And then we do have a moment between Ted and Beard and Roy where he says, "So what? You tried something new and it didn't work. Shake it off." Which so you can see is kind of
Ted,
flat.
Yeah. Roy and Beard both want to be told off. They're both, they've held their hands up and they've said, "Look, we tried something. It didn't work. Like we fucked up. Tell us off."
Mm-hmm.
But that's not Ted's vibe, is it? He just says, look, you tried it. It didn't work. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's however many matches left of the season, which, he's right. And Richmond will play West Ham again.
They will.
They'll play them at Richmond, which I think will be an episode coming up.
I feel like that'll be the finale.
Potentially.
Because it's like everything went wrong this time and then they're going to learn some more and they're going to get that W at the end of the season. It's sort of
It'll either be that or it'll be that no, because they did that in series 1. I was thinking like it'll be sort of Richmond and West Ham both playing their last games at the same time.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
They don't know who's winning.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But
Time
they did that in
will
series
tell.
1, so I'm not sure.
Ted finally opens up to Michelle, expressing his feelings, and he kind of stands up for himself a little bit there. So that's growth, 1, in terms of him finally expressing himself, and 2, him sort of standing up and being like, this stuff hasn't sat right with me, which we've been saying this whole season is people keep walking over him and he just kind of makes a joke about it and laughs it off. Whereas this for me was a step in him sort of trying to stand his own ground and be a bit bigger of a presence. Yeah,
and this bit for me was like linking back to the bit at the beginning of the episode where Sassy says he's a mess, and he sort of dwells on that for the whole episode. He's like, am I a mess? And he talks to everyone And they're like, well, yeah, you are. And, it comes to the end of the episode where he's not shying from it. He opens up. He doesn't, he's not begging Michelle to take him back. He's just like, look, like, I love you. This is how it sits.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I feel like this is Ted really gonna like starting to build himself back up from that. Because even in the first episode, you see that he's like, he is a broken man when he's like in the airport with his son.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is broken. And I think that this is the start of him building himself back up, like accepting that he's a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
And, that's going to be something that we see more of going forward, is him sort of coming to terms with a lot like that.
Yeah. And he's to start fixing himself rather than other people as much, I think.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see a bit of that. So my MVPs, like I said, Rebecca for one, but also Ted for taking that first step. I think that was really, really good of him.
My MVPs are Rebecca. Because she was a bit unhinged, but I think ultimately, like, she was a very key player in this episode, especially for that scene with Rupert. But my other MVP is Jamie.
Okay, which we haven't had to been able to talk about yet, and we probably don't have time for today. But there's still that romance thing brewing there with Keely. You can tell that she was still sort of thinking about how much he'd grown when she was talking to Shandy.
Jamie's my MVP for one scene, which was the last scene where, Roy like mirrors with one of the earlier scenes in the episode. Roy turns up at Jamie's house at 4 a.m. Jamie is up. He's ready to go. He's ready to prove himself. And I think that this is like really, that's going to be a really key part. And I think like, Jamie in series 1 wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Jamie at the beginning of this episode was like, what? Like not ready, not willing. Whereas like he was ready to go as soon as Roy knocked on the door. And I think like that even impressed Roy. So like just because of that, I'm putting Jamie as my MVP.
I have realized something very sad, and I'm very worried about it, that it might come true, where obviously Roy and Jamie are coming closer, and they've been coming closer and closer from being enemies at the start of the show. Is the ultimate test gonna be that Jamie gets with Keely? And then that's gonna, like, at the end of the season, could that almost tear them apart and they have to show their own growth to grow together?
I'm not sure. I think that Keely and Roy will get back together.
I think so, but there's clearly thoughts.
I think it could be a test for Jamie. And I think, again, like, like you said, like Keely was looking at Jamie in a bit of like a, something's still there. And I think that it'll be a big deal for Jamie if like Keely tries to make a move on Jamie and Jamie says no. And Jamie's like, no, you with Roy. I don't want to screw things up with, my training and my relationship with Roy. And I think that's going to be a big character moment for Jamie overall.
Definitely.
So I don't think, well, I hope Jamie doesn't compromise this friendship really that him and Roy have built.
Yeah.
And are continuing to build.
Yeah, I think it'll be a test. I think it'll be a test that Jamie will probably pass.
Yeah.
But yeah, so. You can sort of see these things being set up, and it's I don't know.
Defo.
It's scary. Right.
Yeah.
Shall we call
that's it for another week? Yeah.
Yahoo! Bit of Ted Lasso post match. Do you want to take us out today, Vinny?
No, you're all right. You can do
it. Are you scared?
I introduced us.
Okay, all right. We'll have like a bookend. That's not a bookend. Bookend will be you doing it. Anyways, I've been Aiden, joined today once again by Vinny, talking about Ted Lasso. We are your gang from Ted Lasso post match. Make sure you follow us on the platforms and the subscribes and things like that. Give us a 5-star review.
We're also on Twitter.
Twitter, yes, Lasso post match, which I need to start posting more on, but we'll cross that bridge shortly. And you can check out my other podcast, the 50% Doctor Who podcast, if you like Doctor Who and boys that just chat shit, drink beers, and talk about Doctor Who. Vinny, anything to plug from your end?
No, not at the moment. Follow my music page, Last Orders Music UK, for some exclusive material coming very soon. But
I can't wait.
Aside from that, we will both see you next week.
We will, for a brand new flippin' heckin' episode. Bye-bye.
Righto. Peace out.